very pleased to have Tony Steele here today from Band of Builders, who I guess it's a bit like DOSOS, I guess, Tony, if we're kind of acclimatizing people to the story.
Absolutely.
So, but I won't steal any more of your thunder. I will launch your presentation and welcome, Tony, and please tell us more about the Band of Builders.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. I really appreciate it. Where we're at with Band of Builders, basically, we're a charity that started back in 2016. Our founder, Adam Smith, had a chap called Keith who was working for him and found he had terminal cancer. So Adam put onto a local Facebook group, a builders group, well, whether people would like to come and help him to do some adaptations to his house for him. And on the back of that, he was absolutely inundated with volunteers to actually come and help him. So not only did they manage to do all of the adaptations and renovations that was needed, they actually raised enough money to actually pay the mortgage off for the family because he wasn't insured either. So all of that was covered for them. And also they managed to send them off on a once in a lifetime holiday, which was absolutely staggering, really. And on the back of that, once that was completed, he asked the question whether they were up for doing any more. And the resounding answer came back, yes, please do. And since then, we became a registered charity in 2019. We've done 30 projects. The delivered value is over £1 million now. All of our services are free of charge. So all of the people in the trades that actually go to do the projects do them out of the goodness of their heart, which is just absolutely staggering. You may ask about where we get the funding from. I've got a really big background in builders merchanting, so I know an awful lot of people, and they probably dread my call now because they say it's my turn, is it? And I say yes, please. And to be fair, they've all been great, and they supply materials more often than not free of charge or a much reduced rate. There's only 3 people employed by the charity. We've got 50,000 volunteers who, whenever we announce projects coming up, they pretty much throw their hands up. We've announced one that's coming up in Woodbridge in Suffolk, and we have 45 volunteers overnight to actually come and help to do the renovations on the next phase that we're doing there. I think we're unique in the sense that we're a construction industry charity. So anyone that's in the construction industry, from trades to supplying materials, anything that's related to the construction industry, we will consider them for any adaptations or projects that they might have. And on the back of that, like I say, you know, so we've done over 30 projects now. Our pipeline is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The more well-known that we are, obviously the more inundated we're becoming. So we're starting to cause ourselves a few headaches now, actually. But that's something for us to resolve as we go forward. When you actually, I've got a video here that we'll play in a sec. I just wanted to show you from a volunteer's perspective. So 95% of the people that you see in this video are volunteers, and the other person really is the beneficiary. So just wanted to show you what it actually means to them and the sort of work we do.
People need help. They don't always ask for it, but people need help, whether that's practical help like this, whether it's mental health, anything, we're here to help. We're construction, helping in construction. Kyle is a teacher at our local school. He taught construction. He's also ex-Royal Engineers, and sadly about 18 months ago he had a seizure. Turned out he had a tumour in his brain. Tumour's removed. He'll now have cancer for the rest of his life. So we're coming in to make practical changes to the house to make his life easier, but still give him a lot of independence and quality of life.
Why do I do it? Because it's nice to give something back. Plus, you never know, one day you might be in that situation, and I'd like to think that someone would do something similar for my missus and my kids if anything happened to me.
It's hard, isn't it? I think it comes to the basics of humanity. If somebody needs help, help them. It's just that simple. You've got a gentleman here who's worked his whole life through no fault of his own, has become ill. You can see he's more than capable. He just needs a helping hand to get to where he needs to be. And luckily, there's people and organisations like Band of Builders which have made that happen. So we're so happy to be a part of it.
Not everyone's as well off as we are. Everyone has issues that they go through and stuff like that. And if I can sow a little bit in to help them, it makes me feel a little bit better as well.
Camaraderie is second to none. They've all come from everywhere, and they're all troopers.
It'd be really exciting having Kyle come on and see it. It's obviously a very worthy guy who came and helped out on another project in the past, so it's, yeah, it'd be an emotional time. There'd be a bit of dust in the air.
I'm an emotional person, so I can't talk about that yet. I'm probably going to be in tears myself, so we'll see what happens on the day. It's getting to that point first, really. I'm taking everything a day at a time. If I think of the bigger picture of where we're going, you start to get lost in your memory then, and it gets too overwhelming, so we work through it and hopefully aiming for that 3 p.m. on Saturday.
I'm Kyle O'Connor, and I'm the most recent beneficiary for Band of Builders. I've got a astrocytoma grade 3, which is quite an aggressive form of brain tumour, and then also having the house to sort out. And that's really, it sort of make it very, very difficult for me mentally as well. So all the cables are exposed, ceiling was cracked, unplastered work, it was all things were unfinished, and then just little things like that. It's good to walk in and see it. It's just hell of a lot better.
It was very emotional. I'd invested 8 days full stop on this, but it's been 4 months of my life, really. The main work has been the front room where we fitted new patio doors. The bedroom has been knocked through into the spare room where we're putting in an ensuite and a dressing room. And then to come back through the hallway, really. Closed up and painted the stairs, put in cupboards, things out into the stairs, and just done our best to finish everything we could for the family in the timescale that we had.
But it's marvellous. And people then were like, we said, oh, I haven't seen you for ages, I haven't seen you for ages. And it was like, it just brought everyone together. It was really good. But the bathroom blew me away as well, you know, what they've done, and the fitted wardrobes and painted, plastered, and done everything, you know, the lovely door sets they put in there, you know. Couldn't really ask for more, really, can you?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I think, you know, when you see that, I think the volunteers actually get as much out of the builds as the beneficiaries do, which is staggering, really. And it's still an honour to work for them, you know. So like it's been 2 years now. It's been 2 years of hard graft, and they're not normal days because the volunteers are only available in the evening. So your days are normally 12, 14-hour days. But from my point of view, it's worth every moment when you actually see the end result of what we get and are able to give the beneficiaries, which is what we're all about, really. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of what we do. So you see on the picture that we had previously, you know, so like we've got industry names like Blue Circle, Juicens, they all help us, you know, and they sponsor some of the projects. And again, you know, that's one of the ways we actually manage to fund them. And these are just some of the projects that we actually do. And I suppose from a Band of Builders point of view, and where it's nice to be able to link in today, is probably we're not that great in pushing people towards DFGs. So if we can certainly improve on that, then that would probably help us to be able to do even more projects, I guess is probably the best way of looking at it. Johnny, unfortunately, has now passed away, but during that time where we've managed to actually do the project for him, you know, him and his family, it was a complete change for them. 5 days we were actually on that project, and it was a garden. Now, you know, I think as far as DFG goes, I think we would have had sort of like potential funding for access and egress into the garden or the front, but I don't think we would have had any funding for the actual drive or anything like that. So that's where there's a little bit of a crossover in where we do. And if I can get the DFGs to a point, then we can then, you know, complete the rest of it outside of that, which is absolutely fine. James, lovely young lad, had mitochondrial disease, life-limiting illness, and again, that was a relatively straightforward project. But we went in there. You know, his dad was a plasterer, and amazingly, we got a lot of local people really involved in this. With a lot of projects, we have people that come from all over the country. So even though we might have one down in Tor Point in Cornwall, you know, we have people come down from Glasgow, for example. It's massive that people are prepared to do so much for these cases. Chris lives out in the Norwich area. Absolutely lovely guy. Again, a massive drive that we did out the front for him. He actually couldn't get out of his house, couldn't get to the car. So we put all of that together for him. He's actually reapplied for another project for the back of the house now, which we're considering. But again, we've become so busy than the way that we actually score the projects. You know, it's urgency and need that we're scoring it by. So unfortunately, he's quite a way down the list for a further project. But again, you know, it's like we'll probably get to him at some point. But again, you know, it's like he's heavily involved in the charity now, and has even started to create some. I'm not quite sure what you call them, little keyring things that he's actually selling and donating the proceeds to the charity. Bless him. So he's really invested in it now. And Rob, I think this probably opens up people's eyes. I mean, 58 years old, he woke up one morning and blood pressure made him pass out. And as he's gone down, he actually severed his spinal cord. So he's ended up in a rehabilitation unit, and he was in there for quite some time. And again, it's another one of those cases where they wouldn't allow him home until the adaptations have been made to his property. Interestingly enough, on this one, DFGs weren't even considered. So that's going back to 2020. So this would have been a perfect example where a DFG would have worked really well to contribute towards all of the works that was done. He's now back at home and he's doing really, really well, and it's just made a hell of a difference to him. Andy, another one up in Glasgow, had been involved in a road traffic accident. He'd started to do some work on his home before the accident, and basically he just couldn't complete it. I suppose from a DFG point of view, would he have been entitled to apply for that? I'm not so sure, because there wasn't, you know, widening of doors and that sort of stuff. But again, with your expertise and asking the right questions of people, we would know that early doors. So it's an area that we can, it's an area where we certainly need to improve on and ask the right questions. The garden that we've actually done for him and the flooring we actually laid is like, again, made a hell of a difference to him. He can actually get outside a lot easier now, and at some point in the very near future, he will end up in a wheelchair. But he's a great guy and still stays in contact. I just see a question pop up about do we do projects for people that haven't got DFGs? I'd say 99% of the projects are actually done for people that do not have DFGs. So I'd say yes. From my point of view, it's just an avenue where we can get them to apply, which would help. You know, for example, the project we got coming up for a 17-year-old lad in Woodbridge in Suffolk will be an extension with a wet room, room for a carer, and obviously a room for himself with all of the specialist kit in there. And I think is applied for something like the maximum 45,000 in total, with the extra bits over and above the DFG. The project's going to be coming in at 130,000. So obviously we fund the difference to just make sure we get him home. Howard, love the name of this place, Oswald Twistle in Lancashire. Yeah, he had a heart failure. And again, with him, we had to build him an extension wet room, very, very unsteady on his feet. Short-term memory loss is always, so he's always confused. You can catch him on a good day and you can get him a bad day. I think, again, with this one, the amount of work that went into this over a 7-day period was just immense, so like building quite a small extension for the wet room, and the way the garden was actually set out so that he could get out there and sit with his family was just immense. Tess, she's up in South Shields. Quite an unusual story, this one. You can see Tess standing there in the middle there with her dog, and it was her dog, believe it or not, that kept barking at her tummy. So the story goes. And on the back of that, she actually did go to the GP, and she ended up being shown as having cancer. And she had ovarian cancer, which she got sorted out. I mean, she's actually gone through and had all the chemo, and all we did really is go there. It was a very, very small garden. Just put some decking down and built her a little summer house out the back there. It took a weekend, and it just really, really helped with her recovery. And these are the upcoming projects that we've got. So we've got the young lad in Woodbridge, in Suffolk. That one is a huge one. We've actually got the one show is going to be covering that. They're going to be doing the start of the project, middle of the project, and end of the project. He's still trying to get the DFG sorted. I think, Paul, you mentioned that that if the DFG isn't actually signed off by the time you put a shovel in the ground, then you lose it. So he's got less than 2 weeks now to actually sort that out before we put a shovel in the ground. But what it won't do, even if he doesn't get the grant, which I think that everyone's saying that he will get it, if he doesn't get the grant, we'll still continue to do it anyway, because that's what we're all about. It's not about the money. It's about it's about all of his people within the construction industry all coming together to help him, really. And you can see there that we've got another 4 actually lined up. We've got another one in Northern Ireland. We've done one already. This will be the second. That'll be coming up in April. We're in all points of the country. And again, all of this is possible through the generosity of other people. And it's just staggering that there is so many people out there that are willing to give their time, their experience, all free of charge, which is staggering. And just to finish off, really, on the other side of the charity, probably coming away from the DFG side a bit, but during COVID, it's quite difficult to get out and do projects for obvious reasons. So we started looking into mental health because, we'd been listening and hearing from builders that were going through some really tough times, mental health wise. And then we started getting into a bit of detail and found that the construction industry, if you're in that industry, you're 3 times more likely to commit suicide than other industries. And we lose 2 people every single day through suicide. So on the back of that, we decided that we would actually come up with a plan to try and alleviate those numbers. So now we get out into builders merchants. We have what we call big brews, so similar to a Macmillan coffee morning, but it's encouraging builders to open up about mental health issues and let them know it is okay to talk to people about it. We've since got a 24-hour helpline that we've introduced, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And also we have got a counsellor available for 6 free sessions of counselling should they need it as well. So on the back of that, has come this really important part that we're doing on mental health as well. So as a charity, we keep growing and developing, and and getting bigger and honing our skills more and getting to more people. I know, yeah, just the last page there. Thank you. Yeah, how you can make a difference. So from a DFG perspective, the beneficiaries that are actually aware of DFGs find it difficult to say the least. But I would say the vast majority of the people that we actually deal with aren't even aware of DFGs, which is amazing, really. So, you know, since I had a conversation with Paul a little while back, I've actually been giving them a link to see whether they're actually entitled to DFGs. So they're actually using those now, and they're now applying on the back of that as well, which is great to see, really. We have some instances, for example, where we've got a guy down in Torpoint, and he hasn't actually got an occupational therapist. He suffers from quite an advanced multiple sclerosis, but he's pretty much got to the level where there's not much more they can actually do for him from an OT point of view. So they've left him be. So when I went in there to actually plan the kitchen out for him, it was actually quite difficult getting an expert's advice on what would be best for him. So it would be great to actually have some contacts that I could actually, you know, just speak to and maybe give me some pointers on the best way of actually doing that. I spoke to you recently about this project tightline. The deadlines can get a little bit tight, so we've got this one that's only 2 weeks away, and the DFG hasn't been sorted. And I know you said to me, Paul, that I can have a chat with you about that, so I may well need to on this one afterwards. And really getting that listening, hearing guidance. You know, we don't know everything as far as DFGs, what it covers, so just helping us out on from that point of view will just really help to smooth out the process.
Great, thanks, Tony, for giving us the I suppose kind of overview of Band of Builders. And in terms of DFGs, I suppose it's primarily kind of funding would make it easier to do some of these projects, and it's kind of materials primarily that you would need the funding for.
Yes, but primarily it's more, you know, so like where we're having to go out and do extensions, it's getting obviously the plans together, and the quantity surveying and all that sort of stuff. You know, there's all costs that are actually involved in that. So that really helps. You know, we don't get everything signed off for free. We get quite a lot for free. But for example, with this 130,000 one in Woodbridge, I've probably budgeted myself 25,000 for that. And obviously my job will be to come in under that particular number. I think there was a question mark as well on one particular project where the chap had actually applied for DFG and said, well, if you're actually getting it for nothing, then you don't need a DFG, do you?
Yeah, I suppose there's that too. But I suppose even in those cases, as you kind of said, bit of extra DFG funding, which somebody may be entitled to, would mean that you could potentially help more people as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you know, to put it into context, for already, you know, we start reviewing for next year in October, and as it stands at the moment, we've got 22 projects lined up for next year. And there is no way we're going to be able to do 22 projects as it stands, you know, so that will just help us to increase a number, getting towards 22. But with, you know, so like even with the amount of funding we would need, you know, we'd probably need to double or treble it. So I'd say we normally do 7 projects a year. Next year we'd be looking at 10 to 12, so that's still another 12 people potentially that would need to wait for another year, and then you've got all of those that are coming through on the back of it.
Yeah,
hence why if the smaller projects, if I can actually get them to go down the DFG route, and then they could then have that funded by the grant, then that would reduce my numbers down a little bit, so they could employ their builders, etc., to do the works locally.
Yeah, I suppose you can then prioritise the people who can't access
Yes.
DFG and are really stuck.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
How do you involve occupational therapists in the schemes that you do, or is that kind of one of the gaps that you've got?
Yeah, it is one of the gaps. Yeah, I was lucky enough to speak to a young lady down in Cornwall where she used to be his occupational therapist, and I just rang her on the off chance and said, "Look, I know you're not looking after him anymore, but would you be able to help me out on the design of this kitchen for him? Explain that we were doing it free of charge, etc." And she was great, you know. So she gave me the time that I needed to steer me in the right direction on what was right for his needs. So, and that's the problem, I guess, is OTs will know what is needed for that particular illness they've got, and have that expertise, which I wouldn't have, which really helps.
Yeah, so certainly in the chat, there's a few OTs have been offering their assistance, and Tony is now on the DFG Champions Facebook group as well. So a few people there saying if you've got projects where you need kind of OTs or other assistance, then if you post them there, it looks like you get a pretty good response.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, and thanks for letting me join the group.
Thank you for reaching out, Tony. It's been really interesting to hear about the cases, and yeah, I'm sure if you kind of post anything in the group, then it looks like there's lots of people there that kind of be able to support you with individual projects, kind of from both, I guess, probably both from an OT perspective and through accessing DFG potentially as well. So
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
see some of them there. So yeah, feel free to hang around, Tony. We'll be talking
Sure,
about contractors a little bit more in a while. And yeah, there's a few comments in the chat. So yeah, if you want to connect to anybody to the chat, and we'll share all the details with you afterwards.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tony. It's been
Cheers.
been really good to see all the good stuff that you're doing.
Thank you.